like really interesting links and impact stuff. It's a tougher year to kind of win the alt versus the app that kind of does things in space. But make teams, I think, have a good variety of pretty clever things to do.
Are we? I don't know what happened. Sorry about that. Are we putting the app? I mean, is the app okay against the stuff?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And that's one thing too. I thought Adrian's question was really good. I put some additional work into that as well, and there are a lot of good, I think, kind of venues. I think just at the very kind of core of things, the app challenges some policies that are pretty questionable, which is a very good start. But the kind of stuff that defends space study and multilateralism in space, international law, international cooperation, that kind of backs up the various kind of schools of thought, international relations, that really explain how actors do what they do in space policy, things like that, is quite good.
You get rid of the Wolf Amendment, there's the security stuff.
Yeah, there's no shortage of really, I think, good.
You haven't mentioned like the overview effect either.
Yeah, so I initially kind of went into like LOL overview effect, but some of the stuff saying that going to space produces a psychic shift in humanism, and given how much humanism is kind of like a core concept and a lot of kind of critiques, I think there's really no shortage of good kind of stuff to defend what the app does. It's hard for the alt to do exactly what the app does. The app will have to be careful about how it thinks about frame, space, the various actors in space, things like that. That will be a big kind of crux of what we debate.
Yeah, for the critique ground, I might add, in terms of like, if the resolution specified human spaceflight, the K-link ground would be much better. Just like concept of the human, critiques of humanism are pretty, popular and well-founded in the literature.
Were we thinking there was a shortage of K?
No, and I might caution against, enhancing the critique link ground by providing that specific one. So.
And I'll go ahead and send it. And if anyone wants to read more, I'll send out what we have. I didn't want to full time away. And then also there was some discussion. There were some push among folks for should we do passive voice in opposition to some of the people who like don't think government's supposed to be in the topic. Didn't seem like there was a whole lot of push for that. And Natalie and I were a little bit, at least I was a little depressed. I'm like, how do we do it? We're willing if there is some broader support here to like investigate. But I wasn't going to start day two by saying halt everything.
You start over with your thoughts on government.
Just that there was a pretty strong concern about putting that phrase explicitly in the topic.
Okay.
It didn't seem like there was as much concern. Like, so when I kind of pitched the idea, would saying the USFG should increase its, be an acceptable wording. So that seemed like the topic papers. People said, yeah, that's what we thought we were getting. In my mind, that seems like something that moves the same way in terms of kind of a policy process, but just, I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of added benefit to adding government. It seems like you get most of those things through USFG units, and that's really the only thing that.
You can do it another way, like we're civil, then allows people to say, this is what we mean by civil space.
Gotcha.
But I'll send what we've done, because I was just holding back based on a little bit of uncertainty about what do we do with the wording recommendation, but I just emailed it.
No, thanks.
Oh yeah, we're on day 2. Yeah.
Okay, anyone else have questions about that ground or want anything clarified?
I have a note maybe that I don't know if there's, I'm trying to think of what the wording recommendation is to get out of this problem, but at least in neg K ground, the literature about space and time is like very discrete from criticisms of outer space. And I don't know if there's a way to limit that out. I think maybe, if the word space is in there at all, let alone with or without the modifier outer, people might make criticisms of spatiality in space. But it's just a completely different literature base. And I don't know if there's a way, like if saying outer space would make that less likely to become part of debates. I just think there is such a robust literature concerning outer space and criticisms of outer space. We don't need to increase it to all criticisms of spatiality or space and place. And so, but it sounds like we don't have any wording recommendations that use the term outer space. It was all like space cooperation or space policy, not outer space policy. Is that right?
I feel like you're still going to get those anyway.
Whatever you do.
I will say that just one thing in my initial conversations, a lot of the, especially like policy folks on our team were like, oh my gosh, is ever going to be explored space? And Maybe, but like, given how good the stuff that I found about outer space and kind of astropolitics, stuff like that, the quality and the depth of that literature, if I had to guess, I don't think that's where folks will live. It's a little bit hard to guess. I guess that's an argument people make debates. But, you know, I don't think that's the primary way people will approach space. I might be wrong.
I'm confused about what your question, what your concern is. That if we use the word space, it's going to trigger more of those impertinent things, or?
Yeah, that it opens up ground to criticism of spatiality or the space itself, and not necessarily outer space. And I think that the outer space K-lit is like really good and interesting, and there's a ton of it.
So are you suggesting to avoid that, we would want to put?
And so what I was asking, is there a possibility to limit out the spatiality case by using the modifier outer space? But that's not a term that we have come across. In terms of outer space policy or outer space cooperation, then never mind, disregard this, but I wanted to throw it out as a possible option.
Does it matter? I mean, the reality is that nobody's gonna be able to read a 1AC.
Without
unless-
space.
Yeah, without the word space in it. Like, there's definitely not enough use of the phrase outer.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
It
So
also
is it a
seems like
question of if it's in the plan? Because they don't have to put space in the plan. They could put outer space. If that,
outer space from a utterly different perspective would limit out things like landing something on the surface of the moon, because once you enter another planet's atmosphere, you are no longer in outer space.
Yeah, isn't this part of the question that I don't know if anyone was actually tasked with working on, but like we're like doing
The level.
yeah. Like where, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my cues. I don't know what outer space means.
I mean, there's a definition up there, which is just like physical anything beyond the Earth's atmosphere.
Beyond the Earth's atmosphere and between celestial bodies, which means if you land something on Mars, you have entered Mars's mesosphere, which means you are no
Outer
longer
space means
topical.
no asteroids, no moons, no planets.
All right, so never mind.
Yeah, that seems rough.
That's really boring. Yeah.
Snooze.
All the satellites that look back at the Earth, it would be all the F's.
Horrible.
I can't do
Like
what?
Star Trek, Joe.
Yeah,
Thank
no.
you. Yeah, all right. Other Star Trek people.
Any other questions? Things? All right.
I have to point out that all those kind of things is really
Well, no.
Yeah, lots of
we did have a little cheat sheet down at the bottom of that also, that's just sort of like things that they ask. Be cognizant of, like,
Oh, gotcha. Great.
say
Oh, yeah.
yes, space co-op in particular, USD,
About that.
No, I just thought casual reminder as we switch back to app stuff that we should be asking ourselves, are those real apps?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
feel
both
like
of these, Danielle also texted me something similar to this, and I wrote up the notes for evaluating
Yeah.
countries, and then the notes for saying key words as we think about it,
lens for
like what makes a good country, what makes a good app, the other country needs to want to do it.
So just China.
Pretty much.
For the countries?
But then what other apps are,
Well,
apps
I
are there
mean-
within China that are generic
Oh,
co-op?
there's billions.
Well, all those apps say generic co-op. Good. How many specific
Yeah.
proposals?
Want me to talk about it?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, sure.
How
So
would you use it there?
when I was looking at the list of countries, it seemed like there are like a lot of good arguments in a lot of different directions, but it seemed like a way to categorize countries that should maybe be definite yeses, or at least definitely have resolutions about them, seem to fall into, have these two things apply to them. So either they would have significant barriers to cooperation, which would be China, or maybe Iran, or we cooperate, but there's lots more opportunities for cooperation, which would be like Russia or India. And then to weed out a lot of other countries, it might be helpful to have it be that the cooperation would be beneficial for the US or mutually beneficial for both countries, and both countries would have to be able to mutually participate in it. So when you look at countries like Argentina or Peru, right, they are like super pumped because they just built a satellite and then had to have SpaceX launch it into space for them because they don't have autonomous launch capabilities yet in their individual countries. And like that's not mutual cooperation with the United States. That's space aid to those countries, I think. And I think those two types of countries are very distinct. And so to limit out countries that don't have the ability to like sort of mutually cooperate, maybe not at the level of the United States, but at a level where the United States might receive something back from that cooperation, I think is maybe important when looking at countries.
Is there a card for that cooperation is different than
Yeah,
Yeah, I think there's a card that actually goes the opposite direction.
We're coming as thematically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think-
What
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
a good
yeah.
country, not what a team is. Correct.
That makes sense.
So like,
I'm just not curious because that would also help with some other stuff.
Sure.
so I'm gonna scoot back up here.
Just like if that were true, then there would be like a counterpoint that's just give them money for the programs that just need money. That would help them out.
Oh, yeah, it
Right.
destroys that, yeah. It's like, hey, here's a pile of cash for Argentina. We don't want to cooperate, but.
I mean,
It's like,
but some of it depends on
That's
what
all
we define as benefit, because a lot of those countries in Latin America, it's like we should do this to gain influence, like China is doing it, right? So it's like they don't help us like go to Mars, but we use, China's using that program in order to gain influence for other regions.
But that might shift
right?
back to the first criteria then, which is either there are actual legal barriers, right? Or we are already cooperating now, but there's more room for cooperation. Like, we're not
Yeah,
cooperating
no,
with
I-
Argentina or Peru now because there's like,
I mean, I don't disagree. I'm just saying,
yeah.
not
no.
just like there are benefits, not just to going to space with their program. But
I just think at the end of the day, if we have a list of countries and we're like, here are the 17 countries we think we could maybe go in the res, like there's a way to limit that and say these 4 we think are good and these other ones are maybe less good.
300.
Makes sense.
I'm doing research on and will submit some ideas for ways to do the topic that don't have a country list.
Okay.
Which limits the affirmative to multilateral forums, so that we avoid some of this problem, which is we don't quite know which countries we want to cooperate with. And so, for example, we mentioned COPUOS yesterday. Other ones would be the Interagency Space Debris Coordination Committee. Another one would be the Convention on Disarmament. Those are 3 multilateral forums that the U.S. currently doesn't do multilateral diplomacy in.
Okay.
So I'm trying to generate a predictable list.
Do you have some cards on this?
I'm gonna be submitting something.
Because I was doing some of that reading last night too, and I wanted, before I finish it, I'd rather not overlap.
Yeah, I started with the Whedon article, the Trump administration needs to exercise leadership in space security diplomacy. That seems to be good inherency. It shows that it's not just Trump, but several previous administrations, just for various reasons, haven't done a good job. But the question then is, okay, so if that's what we're trying to do, where would it have to limit the affirmative to make it predictable for the negative? Where would you do that space diplomacy? And so that's what I'm trying to generate now. Is that. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of different versions of the resolution to discuss. Reduce barriers, these, and then all these definitions of the word, or we could take some time to read the cards about these countries and get a sort of final grasp. I feel like we should do the country stuff. But a lot of cards got added. Can we take about 15, 20 minutes to make sure we've read